Hey, what's up, Stay Tuners? It's your good friend Jimbo here, letting you know that today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. I recently joined as a member and you can too. Apply today and let them know that you heard from Stay Tuned Sports and you start earning today. That's podgo.co at podgo.co.
You heard the rest. Now here's the best. Stay Tuned Sports Podcast.
And hello there, all you Stay Tuners. Welcome back to another episode of Stay Tuned Sports. It's your good friend Jimbo here, back again, bringing some fiery sports news, especially yesterday with the LA Dodgers and the Astros little brouhaha going on there. And the punishment's actually being handed down right before I came on today, so we're going to be talking about that. But before we get into the show, head over to Twitter, follow us there at ST Sports Podcast. I want to apologize for not live tweeting last week the bare knuckle fights and the UFC fights because I actually had to work. Found out after I recorded, so not sure if there's any fights this week though. But speaking of the UFC fight, so we are going to be touching on the controversy between Herb Dean and Dan Hardy. Curious to see how you guys feel about it, as well as a lot of NFL news this past week coming out with the opt-out for the coronavirus players, things of that nature. But also head over to YouTube, subscribe to our channel there. We're going to be putting some videos up there very, very shortly, especially with the NFL season coming. Maybe I'll do my weekly picks, or maybe I'll do a weekly fantasy football, who to sit, who to start type thing too. But so like I said yesterday, LA Dodgers versus the Houston Astros, rematch of the 2017 World Series, got a little feisty. Joe Kelly, the Dodgers pitcher, basically made Randy Johnson's pitch to John Kruk look like it was right down the plate. He threw it pretty much at the head of Alex Bregman and Carlos Correa. He did it to both. I believe he actually did it to one other player earlier. But Bregman, it was a 3-0 pitch, threw it behind him, ended up walking him. They did a little stare down there. But then Alex Cora came up, threw it at him, ended up striking him out eventually with that at bat. And as Joe Kelly was walking off the field, looked at him, made a pouty face, and said, "Nice swing, bitch," which cleared the benches. Now, let's not forget, we are already having problems in Major League Baseball trying to keep players safe from COVID, aka Marlins have been postponed all the way through the weekend, all their games, which we'll get into that in a little bit. So like I said, benches cleared, punishments were handed down just a little while ago. Joe Kelly is going to be facing a 8-game suspension, whereas Dave Roberts, the Dodgers manager, is facing a 1-game suspension, and Dusty Baker was just fined. Now, if you guys go like on ESPN or YouTube, I'm sure you can find it anywhere. I understand why Joe Kelly got suspended. I'll get into that in a second here. But I don't know why the managers. If you watch the video when the bench is cleared, if anything, it looked like the managers were trying to hold the players back from getting close. Like they were actually trying to keep the, quote, social distancing. Because none of the players looked like they had masks on when they were coming out to the field. So I don't agree with the managers being fined. Maybe they could appeal it and have like a little slap on the wrist. Joe Kelly, when you think about 8-game suspension, yeah, okay, whatever, it's 8-game suspension. But if you really think about it, with how this season is. A 60-game season, he's basically sitting out 13% of the season. Now, do I think that's harsh? Well, considering I don't think they were harsh on the Astros for the sign stealing and stuff, I think they were harsh. Now, he is appealing it. I think, me personally, definitely there should not be any intentional hitting in baseball, unless you are defending one of your teammates. I'm totally okay with that, as long, and let me actually take a step back here. I'm okay with it as long as you're not throwing at the head or the knees. Throw at the middle of the back, the middle of the stomach, whatever, but not the head or the knees. Joe Kelly went right for the head. And then he joked it off saying, well, I'm known not to have the best control. You look at that pitch, you knew what you're doing. I still don't agree with the 8-game suspension. Since the start of the season, it's already been a shit show. We had over the weekend, I forget what 2 teams it was. Umpire threw out a pitcher out of the game. Manager came hopping over the fence, had his mask on. As he's making his way to the umpire's making his way to the manager as well, and pulls out his mask then. Why wasn't his mask on? First off, he's right behind the catcher. Now, I don't know if there any punishment came about that, but in that video, you could definitely probably find on ESPN. But I think, Joe Kelly should win his appeal somehow, and maybe, I think a fair suspension would be a 4-game suspension. Drop it down to basically 8% of the season. But we've seen Manfred doesn't know, the commissioner doesn't know how to run this league, especially with COVID going on. And NFL hasn't started yet. They better be taking notes of what baseball's doing wrong and what hockey and basketball is doing right, because got to watch the Flyers-Penguins exhibition match yesterday, and both NBA and NHL is doing the whole bubble cities. 2 cities, that's where they play, and that's it. I don't know why baseball didn't do it. You think about it, every week you're playing 2 different teams a week, roughly. So you're traveling. If you're not home, you're going to be traveling to 2 different cities. NHL playing up in Toronto, and I forget what the other city is that they're playing at. But they're only going two cities, and that's it. I believe I saw earlier today, NBA has finally had a day or a week where they had no players test positive. They quarantined the players for 14 days once they got in the bubble. Same with hockey. And NFL is not doing that. NFL is going to do the travel to Kansas City or across U.S. and I think it's going to bite them in the ass. I think you'll get a couple games in, but I think eventually you're going to see the season either slow to a stop, or the product is just going to be garbage, because and kind of leewaying into the Marlins situation here. On Monday, I believe it was, more than a dozen Marlins players and staff members tested positive for COVID. Like I said, their games have been postponed through the weekend now. The Marlins-Orioles game at that point, I think they were supposed to play each other either Monday or Tuesday, has been postponed. The Phillies and the Yankees game has been postponed as well, because the Phillies just played the Marlins. And the Yankees were, I believe, coming in to play the Phillies, which meant they would have been in the same clubhouse that the Marlins were using. So we're already seeing some problems with how Major League Baseball is handling this COVID situation. Now, obviously the Players Association and MLB had to come to an agreement together to get the protocols down and things like that. But I really think the bubble situation would have been the best way to go. And on top of that, with the Marlins, more than a dozen players and staff members have tested positive. Now they're scrounging for players on the free agent line. And what happens if every week 7 people here, 8 players there test positive? Before you know it, it's gonna be such garbage of play out there. And you already have a hard time, even before this, to try to get fans into it. Now, speaking of the NFL and players being testing positive and things like that, the NFL Players Association and the league is still hammering out the final details of the opt-out, situation. But there's already players opting out of the season, which, it's not small name guys either. A lot of Patriot players, which a lot of conspiracy people are already starting saying, oh, Bill Belichick's calling his players saying opt out now so we can get Trevor Lawrence next year. Even college football players are starting to opt out to get ready for a draft next year, if there's a draft. Because, again, we don't know how long this thing's going to go. But as far as the players opting out, here's the situation with this letter, and they didn't sign it yet. I believe they're hoping to have it finalized by Friday to sign it. Once it's signed, all players in the NFL have 7 days to say they're opting out. If they opt out, players that are considered high risk for COVID can earn $350,000 in an accrued NFL season, which I think that's big. If they're not considered like a high risk, they'll get only $150,000. Now, I don't think, the way the article I read, it didn't make it sound like they would get the accrued season. So you look at a person like Marcus Goodwin from the Philadelphia Eagles, who opted out because of his 5-month-old baby, and I totally understand him, and I'm okay with it. So anybody out there that's bashing him for it, listen, this is a guy that him and his wife had, I believe it was 2 miscarriages before they finally had their 5-month-old baby daughter. I'd be wrapping myself in bubble wrap right now. But talking about the football side of it, when the Eagles traded for him back in April at the draft, I believe he only had like a 1-year contract that came to us from the 49ers. So I don't think he'll ever play as an Eagle. He may not get the accrued year, so his contract may roll over to next year. But by that point, we'll know what we have in Rieger. We'll know what we have in Hightower. I still think Hightower might be our sleeper of our team. We have Greg Ward there. We'll have to figure out, because then come next year, the salary cap situation, Howie Roseman's gonna have to pull a bunny out of his ass again, because I saw something, I think we were like $50 million over the cap or something. So there's gonna be a lot of restructuring going on. Some of the players that have opted out that I thought were somewhat bigger names, Devin Funches of Green Bay, who, let's not forget, in the NFL draft, I don't believe they drafted any wide receivers to help Aaron Rodgers, and that was the cry going into free agency and the draft. Was, we're going to get him weapons. And even though Funches really didn't live up to his potential, I guess you would say, in Carolina, he's still a decent receiver. And now Aaron Rodgers is back to having nobody. Marcus Goodwin, like I said, was brought in to add some speed at wide receiver. But, you know, we got Deshaun there. Alshon Jeffrey starting on the PUP list. Not sure if he's going to be ready for week 1. So that means we got Deshaun Jackson, Jalen Reagor, Hightower's got a little bit of speed. I'm okay with Greg Ward coming over the middle. A lot of people bash him saying that, you know, he's not a speed guy. You don't need all speed guys. You still need some underneath guys to keep those safeties from playing too deep, you know. So, and then Patriots players, Patrick Chung, who's I believe their starting safety, playing with the Patriots, he played really well. Played with the Eagles, sucked. I mean, you know, I thought he was a good pickup for us when we signed him, and then I don't even think he finished his contract. I think we actually released him at the end there. Dante Hightower and Brandon Bolden. Now, granted, Brandon Bolden is more of a special teamer, but he's a very good special teamer. But Hightower, I think, is a big loss for that Patriots team. If there's one strength for that team going into this year, would be their defense, and to lose him, Jason McCourty, I believe, opted out, so they're losing a lot of defensive players. Not saying the Bills are or the Patriots are tanking, but it looks like they're tanking. And to be honest, again, I'm not sold on Trevor Lawrence. I think he's going to be an okay quarterback at best in the NFL. I think everybody's loving him just because he looks like sunshine from Remember the Titans. So that's enough with the COVID stuff. You know, let's for once not talk about COVID. Let's talk about a good story here. So Alex Smith was put on the PUP list for the Washington team, because we can't say the R word anymore. I think that dog outside is saying the R word, though. I don't know if you guys can hear that one. But this is big news. You know, and it's exciting news, too, because let's not forget, Alex Smith had the broken fibula and tibia 2 years ago that retired Joe Theismann. Let's be honest. I mean, it was the exact same injury. It's kind of eerie because it was the exact same injury on the exact same yard line. Like, there was so many eerie things that were exact to what Joe Theismann. And he worked himself back to the point that they put him on the PUP list. So the Washington team, because I'm trying not to say the R word, could see how much more time he needs to get back into football activities. They're already having him, you know, running around a little bit, throwing the ball. He even was quoted saying that he could go out tomorrow to go snowboarding. Like, that's how far advanced he is in his rehab. But I'll tell you what, man, to have a scary injury like that, because he had 17 surgeries to fix that leg. At one point, they thought he was going to lose his leg. And to work back to play football in this time, you know, with COVID going on, oh man, my hats go off to him, because I don't know if I would. I think I would have packed my bags and said, you know what, it's been a fun ride. Let me go snowboard now, or do something else, you know. Now, Dwayne Haskins is most likely going to be the starter. Obviously, you know, a young team like that, they're going to want to start getting their young quarterback in there, get some playing time with them. So Alex Smith wouldn't be a bad backup as long as he's healthy enough to do it. They already have two other quarterbacks, younger guys, but I really think Alex Smith would be the better one. I know the one quarterback they got from Carolina, they traded for him, and I forget who the other guy was, but I would much rather have Alex Smith as my backup to help Haskins grow. I mean, he helped him a lot last year. In the beginning, when Haskins came in and started, it wasn't the greatest and wasn't looking too good for him. It was kind of looking like he was borderline bust territory. But towards the end there, he actually started to come on and was pretty good. But he would definitely be a good mentor for Haskins. Now, if Washington... Now, Smith's contract, too, also goes through a 2022 season. If Washington were to release him this year, it would count $20 million against the cap over the next 2 seasons. Again, that could be big because next year with the cap really not going up that much, it's going to hurt a lot of teams. I don't know if Washington's going to want to take that chance. So I'm actually pulling for him. I kind of, even though I just said, if I was him, I would pack the bags in. I'm rooting for him. I hope that he comes off the PUP list. And again, even if he doesn't play it down, what better candidate for comeback player of the year than that? I mean, come on now. Come on, man. One last piece of NFL news, and I can't believe they paid this much for him, but Jamal Adams was traded to the Seattle Seahawks. Now, Philadelphia was rumored to be close to getting him. Zach Ertz was kind of floating around there for a little bit because Ertz is up for extension. I believe San Fran was another team. But Seattle got him. So Seattle is sending safety Bradley McDougall, next year's first-round draft pick, 2022's first-round draft pick, and a third-round draft pick of next year to the Jets. Seattle is getting Adams and a fourth-round draft pick in 2022. I am sorry. I think Adams is a very good ball player. He is a very good safety. But 2 first-round draft picks? And then a third round on top of that? This is a guy that only has 2 career interceptions. And he's been in the league for 3-4 years now. Now, he's a very good run stop safety. He plays a lot up in the box. But 2 first-round draft picks. I mean, I'm glad Philly didn't trade for him and trade all that away. Because now Seattle's going to have to pay him whatever he wants. And they better hope that he outplays that contract or whatever they give him. They just way overpaid him. I am a little upset that Dallas didn't. I mean, they would have got a good player, but I think they would have hurt themselves more by trading away that much draft capital than what he's worth. That right there to me is like the top safety of the league that has 10 interceptions in 4 years or 3 years, not 2 interceptions in 4 years. So we're going to take a quick little break here. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about UFC last week, the controversy, BKFC. So stay right there. We'll be right back. Hey Stay Tuners, it's your good friend Jimbo here. I know a lot of you guys have issues getting your news from social medias like Instagram and Twitter, so I have the perfect thing for you. It's called MyFeed. The cool thing about MyFeed is that you can pick the categories you want to follow. Whether it's sports or movies, you can pick one or multiple ones. I personally follow sports and movie categories. So download MyFeed for free today by just typing MyFeed into Google or your app store. Welcome back, guys. So, UFC was this past weekend. Whittaker versus Darren Till. And actually, before we get into the whole controversy, it was announced Khabib versus Gaethje is going to be October 24th. And some surprising news I would consider, Khabib announced that he's going to have 2 more fights and he's going to retire. Now, what would be those 2 fights? Obviously, Gaethje's going to be one of them. I know he wants to fight GSP. I don't think I want that. everybody, I know the Conor fans are gonna be like, well, why not Conor versus Khabib? And sorry, but the hype train for Conor is done as far as a champ. He's gonna be very flashy. He's gonna bring people in because of his trash talk. And when he fights people like Cowboy or the top 5 guys, not necessarily the champ, he'll put a good show on. But I don't think he could beat Khabib. Now, as far as Khabib's retirement, I think this is heavily weighed on because of his father passing away just a few weeks ago. His father was his trainer. He went in about a month or 2 ago for a heart surgery and ended up falling into a coma because of COVID as well. Came out of the coma and then unfortunately passed away. Khabib, him and his father always said they wanted to retire at 30-0. Right now he's sitting at 28. Thing is, I'm curious if Gaethje beats him, and it's still far out, but I'm still picking Gaethje. He has the power. That's the thing, is he has the power, and I think he could scramble enough to get up off the mat if Khabib has him down. But if Gaethje beats him, does that maybe relight the fire a little bit more to say, maybe I won't retire. Maybe I'll come back and try to win the belt again. And maybe that would be his final fight. Maybe he only wants to get 30 wins and go out on top. But Dana White said whatever Khabib wants, Dana's going to do his best to give it to him. Whether it is because he has talked about the GSP, he wants to fight GSP, even though, like I said, I'm not for that at all. So, but that's October 24th. That should be a big card. We'll see what happens from now till then. So, like I said, this past weekend was UFC Fight Night, Whittaker versus Till. A lot of controversy involving Herb Dean and Dan Hardy because of a prelim bout between Trinaldo and Herbert. Dan Hardy believes the fight should have been stopped a lot sooner. I've seen a lot of fans believe that as well, and I seen the video of it, and I'm actually on Herb Dean's side a little bit. I counted maybe 2 extra punches that Herbert shouldn't have got. Trinaldo threw I think it was a punch that kind of grazed him, knocked him down, but Herbert was able to bring his hands up to his face to get ready to block. Trinaldo came running over, went to start punching him to finish him, and then hesitated because it looked like he was done. Herb Dean came running over, didn't step in to stop the fight, so Trinaldo started landing punches. And it wasn't like Herbert's head was bouncing off the mat because he was completely out cold. He was doing his best to try to defend himself even though he was rocked. But after the match, there was videos and there was pictures of Dan Hardy and Herb Dean having a war of words, if you want to call it that. Now, Herb Dean made a video explaining what they basically, as refs, look for in a fighter that's trying to defend himself intelligently, like they say. And I have the video here, so obviously you guys will only hear the audio part of it. And I think Herb Dean does a good job of explaining what his thinking was. So here is Herb Dean explaining his side of the story, I guess you would say it is.
But what I really want to get into right now is during the match, someone yelled out, "Stop the fight." This is really interesting because there's only professionals there. There's not one fan in the building. Everybody has a job there. Everybody knows what their job is, and they have specific duties. I have a job to referee the fight. One of my duties, me, is to stop the fight when the fighter's taking too much damage. There's two people who are authorized to advise me doing that, to maybe yell out those words, stop the fight. There's one, the physician. We have a ringside physician who knows more about the physical body than I do. And he's there to give me advice. If he can't get my attention, maybe he might yell, stop the fight. Then there's the fighter's corner. They train with him, they know about him, they know more things about him than I do. They may know something I don't know, and so that's why they would give me some advice to stop the fight. Ultimately, to stop the fight is my decision. So for anyone to, I don't know who it was who did it because I was looking at the fight, but I heard it, and so I assumed that it was either the two people authorized to do it, the doctor or the corner. After the match, I followed up. I asked the physician. He goes, "No, that fight was fine. I'm perfectly fine with everything that you did in that match." I didn't get a chance to ask his corner, but I asked the inspectors who were in charge of his corner, and they said no, that the corner did not yell out to stop the match. That means it was somebody else, someone there doing another job. This is a very dangerous thing to do.
So, like Herb said there, kind of taking shots at Dan Hardy in a way. Only two people could tell him to stop a fight if he's neglecting to stop the fight himself. And with no fans, also, here's my other questions. How many other times has this happened with the fans? Obviously, with no fans there, you're going to hear everything. I mean, how many fighters did we see so far say, hey, I heard Daniel Cormier say, if I don't start doing this, I'm going to start losing the fight here, and then switch it up and win the fights. Now, like I said, I'm actually on Herb Dean's side here. I think the fight was stopped okay. Probably could have got stopped two punches earlier. But the way Dan Hardy's making it sound, I don't think it was as bad as what Dan Hardy's making it sound. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, how and who do you punish for this? You don't want new fans seeing this going on. You have commentators almost jumping over the plexiglass to yell at the ref. Like, this is not WWE, not WCW. So if I was UFC, I'd be fining Dan Hardy, and I have a nice long talk with him. Like Herb Dean said, each person in that arena has a job to do. Dan Hardy's job is to commentate, not ref a fight. Has Herb Dean had some questionable stoppages lately? Yes. But they're in a position where they're in a position of lose-lose, because if it seems like if one of our favorite fighters lose and we think they could have got another 30 seconds or so, but Herb Dean jumped in there. Oh, he stopped it too early. He's an a-hole, or he stopped it too late because my guy, my favorite fighter's hurt now. This and that. Like Herb said, there's only two people that he listens to, and both of them said that he was fine. So I would not be fining Herb Dean at all. I think he's fine. Dan Hardy, on the other hand, I think the UFC is going to have a little talk with him, because he is a very fiery person. But as far as the fights, though, kind of moving on here, weren't bad. I thought they would be a little bit better, but weren't too bad. Whitaker wins, and I think Whitaker should have one more fight, because I believe he lost his last fight and he was on a little bit of a layoff. I think he should fight one more time to get a little bit more ring rust off, maybe, because the first two rounds he was sluggish in a way. It looked like but he came on strong. Till it was a hell of a fight. It wasn't like he laid down and died. I think he still has potential to be a title contender in that division. Before we go, like I said, BKFC 11 was this past weekend as well. Do you want to talk about, we're just talking about Herb Dean with the stoppage controversy. The main event was Isaac Valley Flag versus Luis Palomino for the 155 belt. Palomino clocked Flag, knocked him down, and how BKFC goes, if you haven't watched it yet, basically 90% boxing rules. You get a standing 8 count. He stood, when he went to get stand up, he staggered, but somehow he pulled himself up. Dan Margulata came over, said, get ready, take 2 steps towards me, and you could see he still wasn't steady. And Margulata said to him, do you want to continue? And Valley Flag said yes, but kind of looked over to his corner, and Margulata called it off. I'm glad he called it off, but Valley Flag should never have stood up. I mean, he was so stumbling around and everything like that it should have been called way before even asking him if he wanted to be, if he wanted to continue. But it was good fights again. They are getting bigger now because they announced they are actually partnering with DAZN, the DAZN app or sports, whatever you want to call it, the Zone, where you got Canelo is one of the fighters over there. So I'm curious to see how that partnership goes. They said that they're actually gonna have a fight series on there. I don't know if it's gonna be like a behind the scenes or if it's gonna be like a Dana White Contender Series. So I'll be curious to see how that goes. Maybe I'll invest and I'll pay $10-20, whatever the subscription is. So I believe that's gonna be it for this week. Head over to Twitter, follow us there at ST Sports Podcast. Like and share our Facebook page. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Any news stories you guys want me to talk about, or if we have guests on, shoot us over. At Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Get in contact with us. Also, head over to our website, staytunesports.net. We have merchandise there. Very close to getting the hats put on there, so we're gonna have a little link there in case you guys want to get hats, as well as other things as well. So till next week, this is your good friend Jimbo, signing out.